for whatever personal reasons they don't do so. But as we're talking about our prophet Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, I will tell you that there's a message that goes along with this. In everything that we do, in all of our work, talking about my family and I, we try to weave the message into our programs because it's a very urgent and critical message. It's the message that I found in the Bible. It's the message that I understood from the Old and the New Testament, from the Psalms, and certainly I understood this message in Islam, from the last and final revelation, which we call the recitation, or the Quran. But as we go along, I have to give you the translation of certain words so you won't mistake the meaning behind it. The first word that we want to mention is the word Islam itself. It is not a noun and should not be understood as a noun, otherwise you will never come to the right conclusion. To make it real easy for you, just take two little words, work with these. Your whole life gets easier when you try to understand what's Islam. The first word is Islam. Islam means something. It's a description of an action or a series of actions. It carries the meaning of surrender, submission, obedience, sincerity, and peace. And they're integrated. They're not separate. You can't have one without the other. All of these things belong together. It sounds like something off of Sesame Street, doesn't it? Anyway, like the other. Okay, never mind. For sure, all of these belong. All five. It describes your relationship between you and your Lord. It describes the way you're to behave. It's your way of your life, or called Deen, way of life. Islam, in surrender and submission to God's will on earth as it is in heaven. Some of these phrases that I'll be using, you're going to recognize and say, well, he got that out of the Bible. Well, duh. I told you, 48 years I was a Christian. You think I didn't read it? I was preaching, you know what I'm saying? So obviously, you will hear some things that will seem familiar. There will be some concepts that Muslims have that are not the same as Christians. And that makes sense. Otherwise, if it was all the same, then it'd all be the same religion, wouldn't it? So let us begin now. The next word is Muslim. Too frequently, we Muslims assume you know what it means, so we don't even bother to tell you. From our non-Muslim guests, is anybody here that could tell me what that means in the dictionary, Muslim, what it means? Now, not in a dictionary that's published by Fox Network or something like that. We know their definition. Terrorist, bomber, hijacker, I know that. But if you like that one. I'll do that. But if you were to look in the Mawrid or the Arabic dictionary, you would be surprised to find that it's not even a word in and of itself. It'll refer you back to Islam immediately. It's pointing to Islam. All it is a prefix, because Arabic is structured different than English. That's all it is. It's a prefix. We use a suffix. Suffix means after. The suffix in English, er, describes the one who's performing a verb, such as walk, then er, walker, talk, talker, think, thinker, stink, stinker. It just goes like that, okay? So after it, suffix, is the one performing the action. In Arabic, they put mu in front of it. I'll give you the most classic one that you already know, but you didn't know what it meant. Muhammad. Hamid means praise. Praising, the praised one or the one who praises. And when he's in that action and doing it, we say he's a Muhammad. And that's what Muhammad means. But it's also his name. Did you know that? And a Islam is one who is surrendering their will to God. Muslim. So for me, as a Christian, looking at Islam, I didn't have a clue. When I found out the meaning of the word, I said, well, I'm already that, but I don't want to be one of those terrorists. I don't want to change my citizenship. They said, no. Islam is not about what you wear. It's not about where you're from. It's about what's inside of you and where you're going. Now that we've got that out of the way, I would like to mention to you the Quran is not like the Bible. The Quran is not the Bible of the Muslims. The Bible for the Christians is in the English language. In this country, true. In France, it's in the French language. In the southern countries from here, Latin America and South America, it's in the Spanish language. Yes? Yes or no? In Russia, the Bible's in the Russian language, and it's perfectly acceptable to have it in whatever language you have. Well, the Quran is never Quran once it's translated. Why? Well, Quran describes it. Bible doesn't describe what you have. Bible just means book. That's all it means. It's the Koine Greek word, biblios. It's not described, it's just saying this is a book, that's it. The Quran is a word which means the recitation. All Quran is the recitation, that which is being recited. And if it's not being recited, then it's not Quran. When you see some of us holding our book, let me just give an example. Let's see, we've got one here. Yeah, here we go. If you look at it, Quran, it says it right there. This is not the Quran. You say, wait a minute, are you crazy? It says so right there. It's got Arabic right there in it, English right beside it. Still, it is not the Quran. This is not the Quran. This is called Musa. This is the scripture. This is the written version. Actually, it represents the Quran, but it's not the Quran. And if you say, what are you talking about? I'll give you an example. Next time you look at a dollar bill, notice it says note. It's a note, but it's not money. It is not money. We call it money, but it isn't, is it? It's not gold, it's not silver. The Constitution of the United States tells us that money is only gold and silver. So this paper represents the money that's somewhere else. Does that make sense? Yeah. The gold is somewhere else. The silver is somewhere else. The paper represents it. It's a note representing that. Likewise, this is the written word here representing the Quran. You can tamper with this. It's easy. You can take a dollar bill and change it. You can just write 100 right after the one and say, I've got a $100 bill. If anybody wants to give you change, I mean, they'd be pretty stupid, but you can do that, can't you? You can put extra zeros after the one, right? You could. Nobody would take it, but you can do that. Likewise, anything written like this, people could tamper with it. But the Quran says in it that nobody can even touch it. So obviously it's not something you got in your hand touching, is it? The Quran is with Allah, and it is the recitation, and it's only recitation when you hear it as we heard it here tonight, when our brother came up on the stage with us and he was reciting from Surah Maryam. That was Quran. You hear Quran, you recite the Quran, but you can't really hold it, except in your heart or in your mind, but you can't touch it. Okay? Just so that you understand. Because the Quran is exactly today as it was 1,400 years ago. There's not a single word that's been changed. Not a single letter has been changed. Nothing about it is different than when it was originally revealed as a recitation to Muhammad. Peace be upon him. And by the way, he never wrote it. Why? He didn't know how to read or write. He was illiterate. So, let us now find out what Muslims believe about Jesus. We may not be talking about the same person. I want you to know that. Because actually the one we're talking about in Arabic, his name is Isa. Isa. And if you think his name was really Jesus, then it's not the same person. I can tell you that right away. Because the one we're talking about was 2,000 years ago, and the word Jesus didn't exist even 1,000 years ago. This is a Latinized word. It is not from the original language. It's not from Hebrew, Aramaic, or Arabic. Okay? So if you think his name has to be Jesus, some like a born again